Hey, welcome back to Human Will Perform. Today we're answering the question, why do I need a counselor? That is a great question. It's a little bit vague, but generally speaking, my job as a counselor is to help you figure out what barriers are keeping you from living in the full potential of who you were created to be. So some therapists focus specifically in trauma. Others focus in areas of marriage and relationships. Some just work with kids. I do a little bit of both. My biggest passion is really trying to bridge the gap between the fitness world. So what I see kind of happening in the gym within weight loss, nutrition, mobility, and movement, as well as the mental health field. I see a really kind of natural gap, happening between the two, and a really natural progression of kind of bridging those two together. No one's really doing that in the field right now. And so my kind of goal is to be able to work with someone in the gym, because the gym is really, in a lot of ways, a microcosm of what happens outside in the other parts of our lives, whether they be in relationships and work, at home, with our spouse, those types of things. And so being able to work with someone in the gym, I'm going to be able to see kind of a window into what some of their issues might be, whether they be fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being known. All of those things pop up in the gym more often than you would think. I know that I struggle sometimes within weightlifting. Particularly, I struggle a lot with just that fear of just not being good enough, being not able to get that lift. And so that is something that's on my mind and I'm very aware of. But the microcosm effect that happens in the gym is just really fascinating. And so being able to work with someone in the gym, as well as to see them carry that over into the counseling office and being able to work on those kind of barriers, those blocks that are keeping them from living in that full expression of who they were created to be, whether those barriers be anxiety, communication, sexuality, trauma, either that's current or past, that's really inhibiting someone from living fully in the moment, whether that be PTSD. There's just so many different things. Social anxiety, identity issues, spirituality concerns. Those are just some of the things that I work with, but some of the kind of common barriers that can often keep us stuck, rigid, and not able to move and progress with how we want our lives to be progressing. So if you feel stuck, if you feel like your life is going nowhere fast, you don't really know why you can't communicate with your spouse, you don't know why you continually get drawn back into looking at pornography, those types of things, then counseling is probably going to be really helpful for you. I always kind of say, a lot of times people come to me saying, my arm is bleeding, can you just make the bleeding go away and we'll be done? But really what happens is we go in and we make the bleeding stop, so we take away kind of those like really acute kind of symptoms. We lessen those, but then what happens? We might need to do some surgery depending on how badly wounded you were, right? And so even after surgery, then what do you typically do if you're actually having like a physical issue with your arm or your leg or stomach or whatever it might be? You have surgery. After that, usually you're going to probably have to go get physical therapy, particularly if it's a big joint. Like your shoulder, you're getting rotator cuff surgery, you're going to go to PT for a good while to get that range of motion back into that joint. Same idea with counseling, we can do a lot of things in a short amount of time, but the longer that you come, the more long-standing those symptoms are going to be abated, and the more tools you're going to have to fight them when and if they do kind of flare up or pop up in the future. And so if you kind of think of counseling more preventatively as opposed to in the moment emergency, a lot of things can really be avoided that otherwise just pop up. And so if you can be on the forefront of that, like you are maybe with your health or with different areas of your life, you're going to be a more whole human being to give not only to yourself but to give to others that interact with you and have relationships with you. So anyways, hope that answers your questions.